If you've been watching the channel for the last year or so, I've been slowly making updates to the upstairs portion of the fish barn, taking down and rebuilding racks. So today I'd like to update you on the latest portion of this project, as well as talk about a new species that I found at one of my local fish stores. This portion of the project focused on rebuilding this long rack of 20-gallon highs and 240 breeders. This setup was cobbled together with a mixture of cinder blocks and wood and really needed to be replaced. I was able to relocate all of the fish to other tanks that were open in the fish barn. After that, I was able to rebuild the stand and was able to replace it with the stand that you see here that was completely made from wood with the 240 breeders on bottom and 7 20-gallon highs on top. I'm really happy with how this turned out. While most of these tanks are open, I do want to walk you through tank by tank and talk about some of the fish that I did put back into these tanks. So let's start with the first 40 breeder to my left, which is home to my group of Amica splendens. This was one of two fish that I did have to move to a temporary container while I rebuilt the rack. I really like these large round buckets for holding fish from larger tanks. As you can see, this is a pretty large colony of fish with smaller fry all the way up to large adults. This particular lineage is quite old, originating from the Robert Rush Miller collection from 1966. I've had this group in my care for quite a while, having purchased them back in 2019. This 40 breeder is typical of many of my live bear setups, being planted and filtered with a sponge filter. I go back and forth between sand and gravel for my substrates, but this particular tank has a sand substrate that's planted with mostly Vallisneria as well as some cryptocorns. This tank did have some Corydoras ghostii living in it as well, but I took the opportunity to move these fish to a different tank, which I think would better suit them. And as you can see, these fish have adjusted to the move quite nicely. The 40 breeder to my left did house my Alitoka diazi, which I ended up moving to an open 29-gallon tank that I had nearby. We'll touch more on this later, but I decided to open up some tank space downstairs and move this group of Rio Topless swordtails from one of the 40 breeders that I had downstairs. I originally got this group from my friend Scott when I filmed this fish room last year, and they've done quite well. I really do enjoy the green coloration on this fish, as well as its speckled markings. They may not appear much on camera, but I do have a small group of green laser Corydoras in this tank as well, which are also quite beautiful in their own right. This tank has a similar setup to the setup that we just saw with the Gadaeans. Let's go ahead and talk about the 20 gallons on top, heading again from left to right. The first tank is home to my blue Hawaiian Moscow guppies that I've had in the fish room for quite a while. This population seems to ebb and flow, but I really do enjoy the blue color on the males. I'm happy to see that they have a nice group of fry growing out to ensure this colony continues into the future. As we go through these tanks, you'll either see a gravel or sand substrate and find these tanks planted with some Cryptwindeti red. One of the things that I was kind of disappointed about when taking all of these tanks down was taking down my 20-gallon high crypt garden that's been growing for quite a while. But after taking the tank down, I was able to separate all of these crypts and then replant them in all the 20 gallons that you see here, and hopefully we'll have more crypt gardens going forward. The next few 20 gallons are empty, but I'll quickly show them to you as we head to the tanks that currently contain fish. The next 20-gallon tank that we find with fish is home to my Girardus falcatus, which I moved from a tank downstairs. This fish is very similar to its more popular cousin, the Girardus metallicus. I picked up this fish in April at the Chicago Live Bear Association Rare Fish Auction, and I'm really happy to have this pair. This fish is native to Cuba and really has kind of a nice gold color to it. Hopefully at some point we'll get some fry here in the near future and I can get this colony going, and at some point get some fish out to my fellow fish keepers. So now let's talk about the new fish that I picked up, the Basilia chica, or dwarf molly. I happen to need some airline tubing and headed to one of my local fish stores, Fishy Biz Aquatics. They just happened to have these Poecilia chica for sale, and I was able to get a male and 2 females. In the wild, this fish is native to Mexico and lives in a very limited habitat in the state of Jalisco, where it's known to 3 small river systems. So this is definitely a fish that we need to keep around. Mature males on this fish will get some black pigmentation as well as a dark blue tail. Hence its name. This molly species will only get about 1.5 inches long, so I'm hoping to see some color pretty soon on the male. This fish is very easy to care for, basically having the same care and husbandry requirements as your common guppies and mollies. So hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to see some fry. Since we're talking about projects, I do want to head downstairs for a moment and talk about another small project, and that is rebuilding this 40-gallon breeder rack. I was just never very happy with these 2 tanks, which always seemed to be cloudy due to the sandy substrate and corydoras that live there. I luckily had 2 40 breeders open, so I was able to relocate both groups of fish. I also didn't like the way that the original stand was constructed as well, so I decided to rebuild this stand out of cinder blocks for the bottom and wood for the top. I also changed out the substrate on these tanks from sand to gravel, which I hope will help with some of the particulate matter in the water column. I actually did run out of crypts, so I ordered some from the Aquarium Co-op to start and add some plant life to these tanks. I haven't decided what to add to the top tank, but I did move my group of Iliodon whitei from a 29-gallon tank upstairs into this bottom tank. I just think a 40 breeder will be a better fit for this fish given its size and activity level. I really do hope you enjoyed taking a look at some recent projects here in the fish barn. I have one small section left to do in the upstairs, but I'm not really sure what to do with it yet. But once I make a decision and execute the project, I'll be sure to let you know. So with that, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll catch you on the next video.